Gentlemen, let me begin with a truth that may strike deeper than you expect. If you are a man over 60 and you believe it is normal, almost inevitable, to wake up 3 or 4 times each night just to urinate, then you have been told a dangerous lie. Night after night of broken sleep, stumbling to the bathroom, fighting against urgency, or standing there with nothing but a weak trickle, these are not harmless inconveniences. They are red flags. They are your body's desperate way of whispering, then shouting, that your prostate is quietly enlarging. And if you ignore it, the cost will not only be your comfort, but also your confidence, your intimacy, and yes, your long-term health. My name is Dr. Jonathan Prescott. For more than 3 decades, I have dedicated my practice to men's health, prostate enlargement, erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, chronic fatigue, and the struggles men too often accept as just part of aging. I have sat across from men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who thought they were beyond help. Men who whispered their shame, who believed they had lost their spark forever. And yet I have watched those same men rediscover their strength, reclaim their rest, and restore their marriages and self-respect. Here's what I want you to hear tonight. You are not alone, and more importantly, you are not beyond hope. The common story is that the prostate grows simply because we grow older. But the truth is sharper. Age is only one factor. The real danger is the silence, the way men dismiss the early signs until it's too late. And the loudest of those early signs is waking repeatedly through the night to pee. So today, I am going to walk you through the 10 most dangerous signs that your prostate is enlarging and why ignoring them is never an option. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward reclaiming your sleep, your strength, and your manhood. And if you stay with me until the end, I will share something very practical. A simple 15-second nightly ritual my patients use to calm their prostate, restore their energy, and finally sleep through the night again. But before we go further, I need your help in one small way. If this message speaks to you, if you know in your bones that sleep, strength, and manhood still matter, then press the like button right now. It may sound small, but it tells me that you care about your health, that you want this knowledge to reach other men who are silently suffering, and that you are part of this community we are building together. And gentlemen, let me pause here with 3 wishes for you, because in my experience, actions carry power. May every man who presses that like button tonight sleep longer, deeper, and more peacefully than he has in years. May every man who chooses to engage here rediscover the quiet confidence of knowing his body is strong, responsive, and reliable. And may those who take this step of connection feel less alone, more understood, and more hopeful about the years ahead. This is not superstition. This is solidarity. When men stand together, when we share knowledge, when we break the silence, change happens. So I also invite you to subscribe and turn on that notification bell, because each week I bring new insights, rituals, and strategies designed for men over 60, and I want to hear from you directly. Type 1 in the comments below if you believe this message applies to you, or type 0 if it does not. Either way, your feedback helps me serve you better. And remember, I read these comments. Many of your stories, your struggles, and your victories will shape the future conversations we have here. Gentlemen, this is where our journey begins. Tonight, and we shine a light on the warnings your body has been sending. We begin with the first and clearest signal, waking up multiple times each night. But as you'll see, this is only the beginning of the story. Let's begin with the sign that most men try to laugh off, but which I consider the most important early cry for help. Waking up at night, again and again, just to urinate. I sit across from men in their 60s and 70s almost every day, and the story is always the same. Doc, I go at 1, then again at 3, then again at 5, and every time it's just a trickle. Some men chuckle nervously as if it's nothing more than a nuisance. Others rub their eyes in frustration, admitting how tired they feel, how old it makes them feel. And a few go quiet, confessing that the shame of stumbling half asleep to the bathroom has left them embarrassed in front of their wives, their children, even themselves. But let me tell you with absolute clarity, this is not a normal part of aging. It is one of the earliest and clearest signs that your prostate is beginning to enlarge. Here's what's really happening. Your prostate. That small walnut-shaped gland sitting just below your bladder surrounds your urethra like a ring. When it swells even slightly, it presses upward against the bladder, disturbing its ability to hold urine calmly. The bladder becomes irritable. It sends false alarms to your brain in the middle of the night, saying, "Empty me now," even when there's hardly anything there. That's why you wake up multiple times, shuffle to the bathroom, and pass only a few drops. It isn't because you drank too much water before bed. It isn't because you're simply getting older. It's because your prostate is demanding attention. I'll never forget Michael, a 72-year-old retired teacher who told me he hadn't slept through the night in nearly 10 years. He thought it was his destiny that every older man had to endure those endless bathroom trips. He joked with his buddies about it, even shrugged it off with his wife. But when we finally treated his prostate condition, within weeks he was sleeping 6, sometimes 7 hours straight. He walked into my office with tears in his eyes and said, "Doc, I feel like I got my life back." That is the power of recognizing Nocturia for what it really is, not a quirky inconvenience, but a signal that your body is under strain. Think for a moment about what broken sleep does to you. Night after night of fragmented rest wears down your immune system, clouds your memory, steals your energy, and increases your risk of heart disease and stroke. It makes you more irritable, less patient, less engaged with the people you love. And yet so many men brush it aside, convincing themselves it's just age. Gentlemen, it is not. When your nights are broken into fragments, your days become shadows of what they could be. You can't think as clearly, you don't feel as strong, and your confidence quietly erodes. No man deserves to live that way, especially when the cause is treatable and the warning is so clear. Now, here is something most men don't realize. Nocturia rarely travels alone. Once the prostate begins to swell enough to disturb your nights, it almost always begins to affect the very nature of your urine flow during the day. The same obstruction that wakes you at night weakens the force of your stream, turning what was once strong and steady into a frustrating trickle. So if you find yourself waking again and again, don't dismiss it. Pay attention. Because nocturia is not just the beginning of sleepless nights. It is the doorway into a chain of other symptoms that will only grow louder if ignored. Gentlemen, let's move to the next sign. One of the most common and most quietly humiliating complaints I hear from men sitting in my office is that their urine stream just isn't what it used to be. They lean in, lower their voices, and with a mix of frustration and embarrassment say, "Doc, it takes forever to go, and when it finally comes, it's barely a trickle." For many men, this is more than just inconvenience. It strikes at their confidence. It makes them feel weak, diminished, less in control of their own bodies. Some confess that they avoid public restrooms because they take so long to finish, afraid of the looks from strangers who don't understand. Others admit that even at home they grow irritated, standing for minutes as if their body is playing a cruel joke on them. But here's the truth: a weak or slow stream is not random. It is one of the clearest signs that your prostate is pressing against your urethra, narrowing the passage where urine should flow freely. When you were younger, your bladder could empty with force, confidence, and ease. But when the prostate swells, that once-open pathway becomes like a garden hose with a kink. The pressure builds, the flow weakens, and what used to be effortless suddenly feels like a test of patience. I recall James, a 68-year-old former mechanic, who told me he used to pride himself on never wasting time. He was efficient, quick, always on the move. But when his urine stream slowed, he said, "Doc, I feel like my body is holding me hostage in my own bathroom." He dreaded using the toilet because every trip was a reminder that something essential was slipping from his control. Once we addressed his prostate health, the change was remarkable. He told me, "It's not just about urination, Doc, it's about feeling like myself again." This is why I urge men never to dismiss this sign. Because the consequences go far beyond the bathroom. That strain puts stress on your bladder and over time can back up to the kidneys. It affects your emotional health, creating frustration and a constant sense of defeat. And when confidence erodes in such a basic function, it often bleeds into other areas of life, relationships, work, even intimacy. Let me be direct, your urine stream is not just a casual detail of aging. It is your body's voice. And when it weakens, it is saying loudly, "Something is obstructing me, something must be addressed." Now here's the important connection. Once urine flow slows, another troubling sign almost always follows close behind. The unsettling feeling that no matter how long you stand there, your bladder is never fully empty. It's like finishing a task but knowing deep down it isn't truly done. That sensation of incompleteness can wear on a man's spirit even more than the weak stream itself. So if you've noticed your urine stream losing its force, don't shrug it off. Don't tell yourself it's just age. Oh, this is your prostate narrowing the pathway of your life. And the next stage, the feeling of never emptying, is one that demands even more attention. Now let's talk about one of the most quietly frustrating signs of prostate enlargement, the sense that no matter how many times you go, your bladder never truly empties. Men describe it to me in the same weary voice. They finish at the toilet, step away, and within minutes that nagging urge returns. Doc, they say, it's like my bladder is never satisfied. I just went, and yet it still feels like something is stuck inside. That lingering heaviness, that unsettled sensation follows them through the day and especially at night. It's not just inconvenient, it's exhausting. What's happening here is simple but serious. When the prostate enlarges, it squeezes the urethra like a clamp on a pipe. The bladder tries to push urine past the obstruction, but no matter how hard it works, some always remains behind. That trapped urine creates pressure, irritation, and the constant feeling that you need to go again. It's like draining a sink when the pipe is clogged. You think it's empty, but the water never fully clears. This is not just about annoyance. Over time, that leftover urine can create bigger problems. Infections that thrive in stagnant liquid, strain on the bladder wall, even damage to the kidneys. The body is designed to empty fully, and when it doesn't, the risks grow quickly. I remember Richard, a 70-year-old former accountant, who told me he felt like a prisoner to his own bladder. He would leave the bathroom, sit down to read the newspaper, and within 10 minutes feel the urge all over again. He confessed it was breaking his spirit. He avoided road trips because he couldn't trust his bladder to cooperate. He turned down invitations with friends because he was embarrassed by how often he excused himself. When we finally treated his prostate, the relief was immediate. He looked at me with a smile and said, "Doc, I finally feel free again." Gentlemen, that is the emotional weight of this sign. It robs you of freedom. It steals spontaneity. It makes simple joys like a car ride, a dinner out, or an evening with loved ones feel like challenges you're not sure you can face. But let me be clear. The feeling of not emptying fully is not just an inconvenience. It is your body signaling that your prostate is pushing harder than you realize. And when this pattern continues unchecked, the next problem often follows, one that can be even more humiliating: dribbling or leaking after you think you're finished. So if you recognize yourself in Richard's story, don't dismiss it. That nagging sensation is your prostate speaking directly to you. And if you listen now, you can prevent the next stage of frustration before it takes hold. Gentlemen, for many men, the most humiliating part of prostate trouble is not the midnight trips or even the weak stream, it's what happens afterward. You think you're finished, you shake off, you zip up, you walk away. And then minutes later, you feel the dampness. Sometimes it's just a few drops in your underwear. Sometimes it's worse, a visible stain spreading on your pants. I've had men sit across from me with their voices lowered, admitting they carry tissues in their pockets or wear only dark trousers to hide the embarrassment. Some even avoid social gatherings altogether because they can't risk being caught in that humiliating situation. And while outsiders might think this is trivial, every man listening knows it strikes at something deeper: our pride, our dignity, our sense of command over our own bodies. Why does this happen? The prostate, when enlarged, narrows the urethra and interferes with the bladder's ability to push urine out with strength. Even when you believe you're done, small amounts of urine get trapped behind the swollen gland. Later, gravity and movement coax it out. It's like turning off a garden hose but still watching drops slip through because the nozzle is obstructed. I remember Thomas, 69 years old, a retired Navy veteran, who told me he had stopped walking with his wife in the park. Not because he didn't want to spend time with her, but because he feared leaking in public. "Doc," he said quietly, "it feels like I've lost control of my own body. I feel less of a man." When we treated his prostate condition and the dribbling stopped, his confidence returned almost overnight. His wife later thanked me, saying, "You didn't just help his health, you gave me back my husband." That is the hidden truth of this sign. It doesn't just affect the bladder, it touches the heart, the marriage, the spirit. The shame of dribbling isolates men, making them feel smaller, weaker, and unworthy of the simple confidence they once carried with ease. But let me say this clearly: dribbling is not something to be ashamed of. It is not your fault. It is not weakness. It is a symptom, an alarm bell from your prostate. Ignoring it won't make it disappear. Acting on it can restore not only dryness and comfort, but also your confidence and peace of mind. And here's what you must understand: when dribbling appears, it rarely comes alone. The same swelling that causes leakage often creates another problem that is equally disruptive: sudden, powerful urges to urinate that strike without warning. The kind of urges that make a man panic in the grocery store or miss moments that matter most. And that, gentlemen, is where we need to go next. Gentlemen, let's talk about one of the most unsettling signs of prostate trouble: the sudden and overwhelming urge to urinate that comes without warning. You could be sitting at the dinner table with your family, driving to visit your grandchildren, or standing in line at the grocery store when suddenly the urge strikes like a thunderclap. It's not a gentle nudge, it's an emergency, leaving you scrambling for the nearest restroom, praying you'll make it in time. For some men, the panic is overwhelming. I've had patients admit that these episodes have led to accidents, and the shame that follows can be crushing. They stop traveling, stop attending events, even stop leaving the house altogether, not because they don't want to live, but because they can no longer trust their bladder to cooperate. Imagine living each day on edge, always calculating where the nearest restroom is, always afraid your body might betray you. Here's why it happens. As the prostate swells, it irritates the bladder walls. Instead of calmly holding urine until it's truly full, the bladder muscles become hyperactive, contracting suddenly and forcefully. That irritation sends urgent signals to the brain even when only a small amount of urine is present. It's like a faulty alarm system blaring in the middle of the night even though there's no fire. Your body is constantly crying wolf and you're forced to respond. I recall William, a 74-year-old retired postal worker, who told me one of these urges struck while he was at his granddaughter's school play. He barely made it to the restroom, but in doing so he missed her big moment on stage. With tears in his eyes, he told me, "Doc, it's not just about my bladder, it's about what I'm losing because of it." His story is one I have heard many times. These sudden urges don't just rob men of control, they rob them of memories, of joy, of confidence. This is the emotional cost of urgency. It turns ordinary activities, sitting through church, watching a movie, enjoying dinner, into sources of fear. And once that fear takes root, men begin to isolate themselves. They decline invitations, stay home, and silently mourn the life they used to live. But here's the good news. When treated, urgency often improves dramatically. I've seen men regain not just control, but also the freedom to travel, to socialize, to enjoy life again without the constant fear of sudden interruptions. Gentlemen, if you are experiencing these sudden, uncontrollable urges, do not brush them aside. They are not harmless quirks of age. They are signs that your prostate is agitated, your bladder is overworked, and your quality of life is under threat. And here's what often comes next. When irritation grows strong enough to trigger urgency, it also creates another symptom that is even harder to ignore: pain or burning when you urinate. And that, gentlemen, is the next warning we must face head-on. Gentlemen, there is a particular look that crosses a man's face when he tells me about pain during urination. It's a mix of frustration, fear, and exhaustion. Some men wince just recalling it. They say, "Doc, it feels like fire every time I go," or "It's as if my body punishes me for doing something that should be natural." At first, many try to tough it out. They convince themselves it will pass, that maybe it's something they ate, maybe too much coffee or spicy food. But when that burning lingers day after day, it becomes impossible to ignore. And ignoring it is dangerous because pain or burning is not just an inconvenience. It is your body waving a red flag, signaling inflammation, stress, and sometimes even infection in your urinary tract. Here's why it happens. When the prostate enlarges, it presses against the bladder and urethra, altering how urine flows. Instead of emptying smoothly, the bladder struggles, creating irritation. Urine can become more concentrated, more acidic, and that irritation feels like a sting every time it passes through. On top of that, because an enlarged prostate often prevents full emptying, small amounts of urine remain behind, creating the perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Once infection sets in, the burning intensifies, and what was once a nuisance becomes agony. I think of Henry, a 66-year-old retired electrician who came into my office nearly in tears. He had spent weeks dealing with burning urination, telling himself it would improve. But by the time he saw me, he was exhausted, sleepless, and consumed by worry. He whispered, "Doc, I'm terrified it might be cancer." After careful evaluation, we found the burning was linked to severe inflammation, not cancer. Once we treated the root cause, his relief was almost immediate. Henry later told me, "I didn't realize how much fear I was carrying until it was gone." That is the hidden burden of this symptom. It isn't just physical pain, it's the fear behind it. Fear that something deeper, something deadly might be lurking. And fear, left unchecked, drains your spirit even faster than discomfort. Gentlemen, if urination brings pain or burning, do not dismiss it as minor. This is one of the clearest ways your body speaks to you. It's telling you your prostate is inflamed, your urinary system is strained, and you need to act. And here's the truth. When inflammation is strong enough to cause pain, it sometimes ruptures tiny blood vessels within the prostate. That's when men see something that stops them cold, blood in their urine or semen. And that is the next warning we must confront together. Gentlemen, few things stop a man in his tracks like seeing blood where it does not belong. I've had men come into my office with hands trembling, their voices cracking as they describe the shock of looking down into the toilet bowl and seeing red in their urine. Others whisper about the moment they notice streaks of blood in their semen, their fear so sharp they could barely speak the words aloud. Every one of them says the same thing: "Doc, when I saw that, I froze. I didn't know what to think." And I will tell you what I always tell them: blood in urine or semen is never normal. It is always a signal that something inside is under significant stress. Here's why it happens. When the prostate enlarges and becomes inflamed, tiny blood vessels within the gland can rupture. Sometimes the blood is faint, just a pinkish tinge. Other times it's more obvious, streaks, or even clots. Either way, it is your body telling you that pressure, irritation, or inflammation is pushing past its limits. In other cases, infections or urinary stones may be to blame, and while not every episode points to cancer, every episode demands attention. I recall George, a 71-year-old retired truck driver who ignored this symptom for months. He admitted he hoped it would simply fade. But each time it returned, his anxiety grew until finally he broke down and told his wife. By the time he came to see me, he was more afraid of the unknown than of the condition itself. After testing, we discovered the bleeding was caused by a severely enlarged but non-cancerous prostate. With treatment, the bleeding stopped. George later told me, "Doc, I lost months of peace because I didn't face the truth sooner." His story is a powerful reminder that denial deepens fear while action brings clarity and healing. Gentlemen, let me be clear: if you ever see blood in your urine or semen, do not shrug it off. Do not delay. Do not convince yourself it's nothing. It is your body sounding an alarm, and alarms exist for one reason: to be heard. The danger is not just the bleeding itself, but what it represents: strain, inflammation, silent damage beneath the surface. And if ignored, the same pressure and swelling that cause bleeding will also make something else harder and harder: the simple act of beginning urination. That moment when you stand at the toilet, ready to go, and nothing happens. And that, gentlemen, is the next sign we must uncover. Gentlemen, one of the most frustrating and frankly humiliating experiences men describe to me is the struggle to start urination. You stand at the toilet, ready for relief, and nothing happens. Seconds pass, then a minute, you strain, you push, you wait, and still the stream refuses to begin. It feels as though your body has forgotten how to cooperate with itself. Some men admit they avoid public restrooms altogether because of this. The silence, the delay, the pressure of knowing others are waiting behind them, it feels unbearable. Others tell me the longer they wait, the more anxious they become, until the act of urinating turns into a battle against their own body. And gentlemen, that battle is not just inconvenient, it's a sign that your prostate is creating resistance you cannot will away. Here's why it happens. The prostate sits like a gatekeeper around the urethra. When it swells, it presses against the opening, closing it just enough to create hesitation. The bladder may be full, the urge strong, but the pathway is no longer clear. The obstruction creates resistance, and no amount of pushing can fix it. In fact, straining only makes it worse, irritating both the bladder and prostate further. I think of Stephen, a 65-year-old retired carpenter, who confessed that sometimes he would stand in his bathroom for 2 or 3 minutes before a single drop appeared. "Doc," he said, "it makes me feel powerless, like I'm no longer in command of my own body." That helplessness weighed on him more heavily than the delay itself. When we treated his prostate condition, Stephen told me that the first time he urinated without hesitation felt like a victory, as if he had reclaimed a piece of his manhood. This symptom cuts deeper than many men realize. It's not just about relieving the bladder, it's about trust. Trust that your body will respond when you need it to. When that trust is broken, doubt creeps in. You begin to wonder what else will fail, what other part of your life might slip from your grasp. That erosion of confidence is as damaging as the physical obstruction itself. Gentlemen, trouble starting urination is not just old age. It is your prostate placing an obstacle between you and one of the most basic acts of daily living. Ignoring it will only allow that obstacle to grow larger. And here's what many men discover next. The same obstruction that interferes at the toilet often interferes in the bedroom. The circulation, the nerves, the confidence all take a hit. Which leads us into one of the most painful and intimate consequences of prostate problems: erectile dysfunction and the loss of sexual confidence. Gentlemen, let's be honest, this is the part many men don't want to talk about, but it weighs heavier than almost anything else. It isn't just the bathroom trips or the weak stream. It's what happens when prostate problems invade the bedroom. I've had countless men lower their voices, glance at the floor, and admit, "Doc, I can't perform like I used to." Some say they struggle to get an erection at all. Others say they can't maintain one long enough to feel close to their partner. And the weight of that reality goes far beyond the physical. It strikes at a man's confidence, his marriage, his very sense of identity. Suddenly, intimacy, once a source of joy, pride, and closeness, becomes something to avoid. Excuses replace affection. Silence replaces touch. And shame begins to fill the space where confidence used to live. Here's the truth many men don't realize: the connection between prostate health and sexual health is stronger than you think. As the prostate enlarges, it disrupts blood flow, interferes with nerve signaling, and throws off hormone balance. These three systems, blood, nerves, hormones, are the exact systems required for an erection. When one falters, the others follow. Add to that the constant fatigue from broken sleep, the stress of urinary symptoms, and the anxiety that builds night after night, and intimacy begins to crumble. I think of David, a 70-year-old retired firefighter who told me he had started making excuses to his wife. "Doc," he said, "I stopped trying because I couldn't face the disappointment in her eyes." The sadness in his voice was heavy, but his story is not unique. Many men quietly pull away from the women they love, not because the desire is gone, but because the fear of failure feels unbearable. But here's the part I want you to hear clearly: this decline is not permanent. When we treated David's prostate condition and restored his circulation and confidence, everything changed. Weeks later, he walked into my office taller, smiling wider. "Doc," he said, "I feel like myself again, and my wife says she has her husband back." Gentlemen, erectile dysfunction tied to prostate problems is not weakness, and it is not the end of the road. It is your body's way of telling you that the systems designed for intimacy are under pressure. And when you listen, when you treat the root cause, you don't just restore function, you restore connection, you restore confidence. You restore the simple joy of reaching for your partner without hesitation. Let me be blunt. When prostate health declines, sexual health almost always suffers alongside it. But when we protect and strengthen the prostate, intimacy often flourishes again. That is why this sign deserves attention, not silence, not shame, but action. And here's the thread you need to notice. The same obstruction that weakens erections and steals intimacy also spreads discomfort into the surrounding muscles and tissues. Many men begin to live with a dull, nagging ache in the pelvis and lower back. And that is the next warning sign you must not ignore. Gentlemen, let's turn to one of the most overlooked yet deeply troubling signs of prostate enlargement: the dull, persistent ache that settles in the pelvis or lower back. Men often dismiss it at first. They say, "Doc, it's just age catching up with me," or "must be arthritis or muscle strain." But when I listen more closely, the pattern becomes clear. They describe a heaviness in the lower abdomen, an ache in the hips, a nagging pressure in the back that never fully goes away. Some men say it feels like carrying a hidden weight all day long, something that drains their energy, makes every movement harder, and quietly robs them of joy. Here's the truth: this is not just the wear and tear of aging. This is your prostate radiating stress into the surrounding tissues. The gland sits deep in the pelvis, tied closely to muscles, nerves, and blood vessels. When it enlarges, the strain doesn't stop at the bladder. It spreads into the pelvic floor, creating tension that pulls on the hips, thighs, even the spine. What begins as a small irritation can grow into an ache that follows you everywhere. I think of Frank, a 69-year-old retired farmer who came to me after months of enduring this kind of pain. He said, "Doc, I thought it was just part of getting old, but the longer I ignored it, the worse it got. I couldn't sit through church, I couldn't ride my tractor, and I felt like my own body was betraying me." When we treated his prostate condition, the difference was dramatic. Weeks later, he walked into my office smiling, lighter, telling me, "I feel free again. It's like a weight has been lifted off my life." That's the reality of this sign. It isn't only about pain, it's about what pain steals. It steals concentration. It steals the ability to enjoy a simple dinner without shifting in your chair. It steals the freedom to travel, to rest, to laugh with your grandchildren without distraction. Gentlemen, I want you to hear this clearly. Chronic pelvic or back discomfort is not something you should just accept. It is not just age. It is a signal, urgent and insistent, that your prostate is under strain, and if you ignore it, the ache will not simply fade, it will grow, taking more of your quality of life each day. And here is something important. When we step back and look at all these signs together, nocturia, weak stream, urgency, pain, bleeding, intimacy struggles, and this persistent ache, they form a story. A story your body is begging you to hear. But before we close, I want to pause and do something different. I want to take time to respond to you, to the men who comment, who ask, who sometimes challenge me directly. Because your voices matter and your questions deserve answers. Gentlemen, before we move into the conclusion, I want to pause and turn this moment over to you. One of the things I value most about this community is that you don't just listen, you respond. You comment, you share your frustrations, your victories, and yes, sometimes even your skepticism. And I read them all. Tonight, I want to address a few of the most common and most heartfelt questions I've received from men just like you. Question 1, Doc. I'm 62 and I wake up twice a night. Is that really a big deal, or am I just being paranoid? It's a fair question and one I hear often. Here's my answer: waking once occasionally may be normal. But when it happens night after night, and especially when it climbs to 2, 3, or 4 times, that's no longer just age. That is your prostate speaking to you. Don't ignore it. Early attention can save you years of frustration and protect your long-term health. Question 2, Dr. Prescott, are you just fear-mongering? My grandfather got up 5 times a night and he lived to 90. Gentlemen, I hear this one a lot. Let me be clear, my goal is not fear, it's awareness. Yes, some men endure symptoms and still live long lives. But the question isn't just about years, it's about quality of those years. Do you want to live 90 years exhausted, embarrassed, and chained to the bathroom? Or do you want to live those years strong, confident, and free? That is the difference awareness can make. Question 3, Doc, is this just about selling pills? Every time I watch a health video, it feels like someone's trying to push me something. A blunt question, and I respect it. My answer: no, I don't sell you anything. My mission here is to give you the truth, grounded in decades of practice and thousands of men I've helped. The ritual I'll share at the end, it's simple. Natural and free, no gimmicks, no hidden agenda, just knowledge you can use. Question 4, I'm 77, I already have prostate enlargement diagnosed by my doctor. Is it too late for me to improve? Absolutely not. I've treated men in their 70s, even 80s, who thought they were beyond hope. And yet, once we supported their prostate health, they slept through the night, regained energy, and restored intimacy. It's never too late to take steps forward. Question 5, Doc, this all sounds depressing. Do you really expect us to believe there's hope after so many years of problems? Gentlemen, let me tell you, hope is not optional, it's essential. I've watched men who thought their best days were over discover new strength. I've seen wives write me letters thanking me for giving them their husbands back. I've seen grandfathers play with their grandkids again without the shadow of worry. If there's one thing I know for certain, it's this: you are never too old to heal and never too far gone to change. And one last one, because it made me smile. Question 6, Dr. Prescott, if I hit the like button, will that actually fix my prostate? No, my friend, it won't shrink your prostate overnight. But it will do something powerful. It will tell me and every other man watching that you are part of this movement, that you care about your health, and that you stand shoulder to shoulder with other men fighting the same battle. And that matters more than you know. Gentlemen, your voices shape this channel. Keep asking, keep challenging, keep sharing. This isn't just me talking to you, it's us building something together. And with that, let's move to the conclusion, where I will bring all these signs together and show you the next step toward reclaiming your strength, your sleep, and your manhood. Gentlemen, we have walked together through the 10 most common and most troubling signs of prostate enlargement. We've seen how they begin quietly with something as simple as waking up in the night, and how they grow louder, stealing your rest, your confidence, your intimacy, and even your sense of identity. Let's remember them: waking up multiple times each night, the weak or slowing stream, the hesitation at the start, the constant feeling of never emptying, and the humiliating dribbling that follows. The sudden urges that strike without warning, the burning pain that feels like fire, and the shock of seeing blood where it does not belong. The erosion of intimacy, the heartbreak of erectile dysfunction, and the dull, relentless ache in the pelvis or lower back. Each of these may appear on its own, but together they form a story. A story your body is begging you to hear. And here's the part you must take to heart. These are not random inconveniences, not minor quirks of getting older. They are connected signals. They are your prostate raising its hand saying, "Pay attention, I need care." Over my 30 years in men's health, I have listened to these stories whispered in embarrassment, hidden in silence, or brushed aside until the suffering grew unbearable. I have seen men who once stood tall, who built businesses, fought wars, raised families, reduced to shadows of themselves because they thought, "This is just my fate." But I have also seen something else, something far more powerful. I have seen transformation. I've seen men who thought their best days were behind them rediscover strength, energy, and intimacy they believed were lost forever. I've seen the tears of wives who tell me, "Thank you for giving me back my husband." I've seen grandfathers smile as they tell me they played ball with their grandkids without worrying about their bladder for the first time in years. Gentlemen, listen to me carefully. You are not broken, you are not weak, you are being warned, and once you heed that warning, everything can change. Do not wait until you are waking up 5 times a night. Do not wait until intimacy has slipped away. Do not wait until the pain becomes unbearable. The sooner you act, the sooner you reclaim what is rightfully yours, your rest, your strength, your manhood. And here's my promise. In the very next step, I will show you something simple, natural, and practical. A nightly ritual that takes no more than 15 seconds. My patients use it to calm their prostates, restore their energy, and sleep through the night again. Gentlemen, it is not complicated and it is not beyond your reach. Before we end, I want to ask you for one thing. If this message resonated with you, if you felt even one of these signs echo in your own life, press the like button right now. Not because it magically fixes your prostate, but because it tells me you are committed to listening to your body, to protecting your future, and to joining a brotherhood of men who refuse to suffer in silence. And as you do, let me leave you with 3 blessings, man to man. May you sleep deeply tonight without interruption, feeling the kind of rest you thought you had lost. May you rise tomorrow with more strength and confidence than you had yesterday. And may your years ahead be marked not by decline, but by renewal, years lived with dignity, presence, and vitality. Gentlemen, your prostate is speaking, your body is waiting, and your future is still yours to shape. Now let's take the next step together.